Okay, it looks like. Alrighty, welcome everybody. This is a World of Energy, and I'm Brenny Larson, your host. I am known to interview the light leaders and those pioneers on the new frontier of life. And today I'm really lucky because I have Marcos Corral with us in the house. He is from the Freethinkers Allowed podcast. And we're going to dive in today to talk about the world of faith and spirituality, technology, science, and music and psychedelics. So I want you to welcome Marcos today, and we're going to jump right in this really fun topic.
Awesome. Thank you. Good to be here.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your podcast and what the mission of that podcast is and how that's going to impact our listeners today.
Well, the mission of the podcast is it's all in the name, right? Freethinkers Allowed. And I got it from, it was actually a meme. It was like some church banner or something said like Freethinkers, like the worker of Satan or something like that. And I was like, oh my God. I was just like, no. So, I was like, you know what? I already had a name for another podcast. I've been working on it for, about a year, but I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just go ahead and go with this because this is perfect. This is Free Thinkers Allowed, and my number one motto for whoever you are, whatever you believe is when you're having a conversation with somebody, don't be a dick. And that's really it. If you can follow that simple rule, we can get into each other's head and check out each other's perspective and learn from each other, So yeah, that's what it's about.
So you must be getting some popcorn ready because of all the politics and stuff going back and forth, which is not open-minded free thinking, is it?
Not for the most part. I have friends that are conservatives and liberals, and with those guys, I can have really awesome conversations because I can learn things that I wouldn't have known otherwise if I was a closed-minded, allowed person, right? So, it doesn't matter what politic, religion it is, whatever it is, not one person or one ideal has every single answer. So if you're open and you can disagree with people and be like, well, I don't necessarily see it that way. I kind of understand why you see it. And because we had this conversation, I understand how you came to that conclusion. Not my conclusion, but I get it and I respect it.
Well, that's kind of being an adult, isn't it?
Well,
many of us are not really mature, but it's being open to listening to another perspective is all, correct?
Absolutely. I remember when I was, maybe a little more fundamentalist in my belief system, it was, my way, and that's how it is. And, whatever you have to say is villainized, and I think that even in politics, the other side, whatever side you're on, is villainized. And I think you have to be really careful about that because once you begin to villainize somebody, you begin to dehumanize them. Right. And when you dehumanize them, it's easy to carry violence on them. Right. So, that's why I'm careful. I'm careful to my conservative friends. I say, don't call them snowflakes because, those are still human beings. To my liberal friends, I'm like, dude, if you really listen to these guys, they're actually not racist. They just think of a certain way. And, if you never talk to them, you guys can kind of just go back and forth calling each other names. You're on the same low level frequency playing field and you're not rising above, that first level of communication, which is like crap, really, because nobody listens to each other.
Yeah, that is a big one. I want to talk a little bit, like, what is the difference between faith and spirituality?
I think you can have faith in whatever, faith is really about kind of hope, I guess. You have faith and hope that something is going to work out. You have faith in your children. You have faith in the ideals. We'll say, for instance, raising your children. You have faith in the certain methodology that your kids are going to grow up to be quality human beings, right? And the faith is within that structure of ideals. And that really has nothing to do with spirituality. Spirituality, to me, just means your interaction with the divine. whether that's through meditation, whether that's through contemplative prayer, like some of the saints in mystical Christianity did, whether that's through psychedelics, like a lot of people are getting into dimethyltryptamine and they're having their ayahuasca sessions, and even with cannabis, So I think there's the type of person that is really in their minds and they have an incredible academic intelligence and they completely reject the spirit side, and I understand them because a lot of them are atheists and some of them are my friends, but it's like there's this whole other side of life that you guys aren't partaking in.
Let's talk a little bit about psychedelics, because you can kind of feel people cringe when you say that. Do you think that really helps people to open up and be able to communicate or feel the other side, to be part of the matrix, however you want to put that?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak out of my own experience, right? And out of the experience of people that I've personally spoken to and taken journeys with. I don't think it's for everybody. I used to think that it was for everybody, but I no longer think that. Like Sadhguru, he's like, I don't need anything. I'm always like blissed out, Cool. If you can get there, absolutely, man. You actually don't need anything. If you really put in the work and put in the meditation and whatever, you really don't need any substance to reach that type of euphoric or elevation level and trying to learn stuff that's spiritual. You really don't need that stuff. Is it quicker? Oh yeah, it's quicker. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take you to meditate to have the same effect as DMT does, or ayahuasca. But I think people should definitely be more open-minded and more gracious to people that are willing to partake in those things. And just like Graham Hancock says, if you're not sovereign over your own consciousness, you're not sovereign over anything.
Do you think it might open them up enough to see the other side, so then they have something to shoot for? Because so many people right now, it seems, are so bombarded with technology and all the information overload that they really cannot get to the point to even breathe and connect to source.
I've thought about that as well, because we're, like you said, we're so bombarded with all of these things. And I think it has to do also with the environment that you're in, not just like in your house or in your room, but in the city that you're in. I think that it's easier to go to the mountains and meditate. It's just like, it's like spiritually more quiet, that the frequency isn't as chaotic, So if you go, I think that's why people feel refreshed, right? When you go stick your feet in a waterfall, you're releasing all those positive ions and you're getting all that good vibe from that. So, I think going out into nature is crucial, just to get away. It's how we've been for thousands of years, and we've been fine. Now we can use technology to help us, but also kind of learn a balance and get away from that stuff and not be on your phone all day, because it's an over what's the word I'm looking? It's like an overstimulation of information into your mind that you actually don't need, and sometimes it clutters you.
Well, how many people wake up and grab their phone right away too, instead of go outside and start your day with a positive energy? See, I'm blessed to live in the woods, and what I find amazing is people that actually do live in, like, on a lake or an ocean, and instead of going outside, they're using their phone to listen to nature sounds.
Yeah, isn't that strange?
It's just the weirdest thing to me. It's like, well, the hummingbird is right outside with the butterfly, and it's really pretty outside. Wait a minute, I got to plug my, phone in and make sure I have my nature sounds. Is that not being in the now or what, Marcos?
Yeah, I find that extremely strange. However, and this is something that I'll always say, I think that technology is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely love the fact that I can just go click and my room gets instantly cool or warm, right? So there's that part of it too.
And do a podcast with somebody anywhere in the world at any time. I think this is really something that we are connecting everyone, which is the goal here, not separateness, connecting. Marcos, I want to talk a little bit about your background. I find it interesting because you have like two sides, is how I see it. You got this kind of strict side, you're a Navy veteran and a firearms instructor. those are like checklists, kind of got to follow the rules. And then on the other side, you're like a cannabis advocate and a musician, and you do a podcast. So when you do a podcast, that's freedom, because you get to interview the people you want on the topics you want. Is this how you balance life out, or have you changed and flowed more into that free soul?
I've always tried to see both sides of the coin, so I can go out and enjoy an awesome walk and enjoy in the woods and see the details in the leaves and hang out with some liberal friends and be like, wow, this is really amazing. And then go shoot some guns with my conservative friends, because that's pretty cool too. So
I comment, liberals do have guns. This is a misconception. People go hunting up where I'm from, and they may be a Democrat or independent. So I just want to throw that out there so we don't label that Republicans are the only ones with guns.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just think that, and we like to do broad strokes when it comes to describing people, just because it's just easier. We'd sit here and have a 10-hour conversation if we tried to describe every type of person on this planet. But yeah, I mean, I've always tried to be balanced. I've always felt that the direction that I've felt from my creator in my life is to be balanced, and understanding people is balanced. Working hard is balanced. Also resting, knowing when to rest and not burning out, that's also balanced. So you got to have balance in your life. You can't just be so extreme with one thing for a very long time that it's like this. If you listen to a really, really awesome song that, like, you first hear it, it makes you cry or it gives you some crazy inspiration, you can play that song for like a month, and then after that you don't want to hear it anymore because you burned it out, and so you take this great piece of artwork and you're like not even interested in it anymore because you didn't pace it out in your life.
Well, that's interesting. Do you find when you do take time out and balance it that you're more productive in your business world?
Yeah, absolutely. And even having some cannabis once in a while, not just for medicinal purposes, but also for letting down. It is just like alcohol. You can have too much of it. Absolutely. But if you have the right amount, it can absolutely be a social lubricant, and it can allow you to just get into some kind of workout routine. People think that you're gonna, smoke weed or whatever and just be lazy on the couch. I've actually never had that experience, not even once. Every time I have indica specifically, it's because you have some pain or you want to relax, and every single time it just makes me and drives me to go sit on the carpet for 2 hours and stretch every single time.
That's really good. For us non-stretchers that have to work at it. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about, you said that you feel in your spirituality that you get strength from another dimension. What do you mean by that? What's another dimension to you?
For me, it's, trying to wrap my head around the multi-dimensional theories and hyperdimensions and M theory and string theory and all of these things that are super complex if you get into the mathematics side of it, which I kind of don't. I kind of stick on the philosophy side of it. But for me, it's like this. Where all we ever see is 3 dimensions, right? And we can experience 4th through the linear timeline that we live in. If say with 10 or 11 dimensions were created, then I would believe that God is outside of that. So when you're receiving strength or inspiration or something like that, it's from outside of that. So I believe God created everything. I don't believe God is a magician. I think he's an architect, and he set forth everything, every single law of physics, everything that's in place that we see right now for our benefit. So that's what I say when I feel like my strength comes from a hyperdimensional, from another dimension. It's really just coming from God,
I always have found it very interesting where people will pray and pray and pray for a miracle, and then something miraculous will happen, and they'll say, well, no, that couldn't have happened at all. So it's like, what's your comment on that, where people pray for something and then when it happens to them, they don't believe it?
That's a pretty deep psychological topic. It's kind of like the Joker, where he's like always going after Batman, but he's like, if I ever caught him, I wouldn't know what to do with him. I think that there's some psychological fundamental truth to that within our society, within just humans. It's like we want something so bad, and sometimes the object is not actually what we want. It's the journey that gets us there. This is why hunting is so amazing. Yes, you get to hunt and you get to have that animal sacrifice its life so that you and your family can eat. But the craziest rush that you get is actually chasing that animal down. So I don't know. People pray for stuff, and they get, maybe they don't have faith, right? Maybe they're kind of just throwing up a prayer up somewhere, and they're like, we'll see if it works. And then maybe it does work, and they're like, wow, I didn't expect that to work. I don't know.
What do you think about challenging situations in people's lives? Is this a benefit, or is that just more of the why does this happen to me syndrome?
It's tough because, I lost a child before, and it's very easy to go into that part of your mind that's like, why in the world would this happen to me? Why would a loving God who loves everyone, why would he let this happen? And for me, it's like this: stuff just happens. Medical things happen. There's powers beyond our control. If somebody decides to to act crazy and kill a bunch of people, that's not God's fault. That's that person's fault. So I don't know, man. There's so much to unpack there, and I think that suffering can actually be a really good thing, because if you're exercising with a 1 pound dumbbell, you're never going to gain muscle mass. You got to exercise with a 20 pounder. And then when you get comfortable, you got to exercise with a 30 pounder, and you build more resistance, and it's more of a challenge. People just don't see it that way because they don't look at the brain as a muscle, and your heart is also a muscle. But I think you can also use your emotions as a muscle. Like the more you do something, the better you get at it, the more the more comfortable you become with the pain, and you just push through and you push through and you push through, and then you get to the other side and you reap the reward of that pain. So, if there is pain, there's in my eyes, for a parent, there's no worse pain than losing a child. So if you can get through that and have something positive come out of that, you can have something positive come out of any pain.
It seems most of the interviews I do that somebody was at rock bottom, and that's when the big aha, the big shift, the big life purpose awakening came to them. Do you think that's what maybe comes out of the challenges and turmoils, is growth?
I mean, you can only grow up when you're on the bottom, right?
There's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere else to go. So you have a choice. When you've reached rock bottom, you have a choice. You can either pity yourself and say, I'm going to stay here. And that's very easy because the pity feels really good, especially when other people are giving it to you and you feel like, oh, wow, I'm getting attention. This attention feels kind of good, right? So you're tempted to stay there. But
it's comfortable, right?
Oh yeah, it's very comfortable. And if you pick yourself up, man, you'll be surprised at how far you can go, what you can do, the things that you can achieve. It's just incredible. It's really incredible. I think the human being is God's masterpiece, and you can literally just choose one thing. Even if you don't have the passion for it, you can choose one thing and practice that thing and give it 10,000 hours of fundamentals, and you're going to be good at it. I think that's an amazing aspect of humanity.
Yeah, making that choice of where you want to put your energy. I recently, was listening to Joe Dispenza and heard, one of his facts, and it really is frightening when you think about it, that 95% of our thoughts are the thoughts that we had yesterday. And so if you're not happy with where your life was yesterday, and what are you doing? You're living in the past and giving energy to it. So what are you creating? You're creating everything you don't want. Let's talk about that a little bit, huh? How does thinking about your past create the exact future you don't want?
I think in some ways it's important to think about your past because you have a history of your struggles, and you have to kind of remind yourself from time to time, hey, you know what, I made it past that, so I'm going to be good. Now if you focus on the past way too much, which I've been guilty of, it's very difficult to focus on the future because for men we can't multitask very well, right? So
I agree with you.
we're very task oriented. That's why we know when we do one thing, we can do that thing really well because that's our focus. But we don't have that social peripheral vision. Um, but you know, I think once you drive forward into it and you keep looking forward, and you focus on your goals, you focus on what you want. You don't like how your life is right now, and you can't run a marathon. You're 250 pounds. You can't run a marathon, but you can go for a walk. So all it takes is, oh man, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, my back hurts, whatever it is. Stop focusing on your pain and focus on what you want to do. If you focus on that, you're gonna get there, even if it's one little tiny step at a time. I think it was Bruce Lee who said you gotta have at least one step every single day that you take towards your goal, even if that step is half a step. You've made half a step instead of no step or backwards.
Bruce Lee, you just called it. Love him. Okay, so let's say there's somebody listening right now and they're stuck in their head and they're stuck in that story and they really want to move past it, but maybe they just think they're not a good meditator. What advice can you give to them to move that half a step or one step forward today?
There's a difference between motivation and discipline. And discipline, you have to work at it. But motivation is good as well. So I would say if you surround yourself with people that are going to inspire you. If you can't do that, you can always, there's an endless amount of motivational videos on YouTube. You can just go in there and surround yourself with that. Even if your environment is chaotic, you control with headphones what goes inside your head. You control what goes inside your eye gates, your ear gates, right? So if you decide to only start watching good things or hearing good things, like we'll say, man, if you don't know where to start with Anthony Robbins. That's like, he's very well known, he's very credible, and he's gonna motivate you. If Anthony Robbins doesn't motivate you, you got no soul.
One other thing I wanted to talk about, I found interesting, is that you were talking about cutting people out of your lives, and everyone's like, yes, cut these people out of your lives. They're negative. Yes, if they are impacting you negatively, cut them out. But you also said something about you feel like you didn't grow by cutting some people out of your lives. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, I think some people are really, really toxic, and you absolutely need to cut them out of your life because they have nothing but a negative attitude or a negative influence in your life. Those type of people you should definitely cut out of your life. But the people that just kind of annoy you, or I don't really like what they have to say about that, I think those people are in your life so that you can work through the cognitive dissonance in some ways, where you're like, you know what? I don't disagree with that person, and you take it as a challenge upon yourself, saying, you know what, I'm gonna learn something from that person, not just get along with them, because even that's too easy. But like, let me go ahead and go learn something from this person, and you're actually gonna find out how much either in common you have or something wonderful that you can learn from them. You're gonna learn about their story, and if getting along with them is a challenge, take that challenge.
Yeah, what is it that's bugging you so much? Anytime somebody bothers you, you're going to learn more about yourself if you really sit and think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's also talk about how you feel that, your role is of service to others, which you're great at. At what age in life, were you born and you're like, man, I love helping others? Did you find it through music? Because we know you love music. What was the point when you went, this is what I'm in alignment with and why I'm here?
It's just a different culmination of things. For one thing, it was definitely cannabis because it allowed me to be something that was very difficult for me to do on my own, which was be introspective. When you have an ego, you don't want to think that you have an ego. But if you're on some kind of psychedelics, it doesn't take you hostage. It forces you to go into those places in your heart, into your mind, and be like, damn, I'm being an asshole. And for me, cannabis showed me a lot of these errors that I had in my life and showed me different people that I was actually really mean to. And I was like, you know what? I got to go apologize to that person because that wasn't cool of me.
A lot of what you're saying to me sounds like awareness is the key for people to shift in all aspects of we've been talking about. It's them first being aware. And you're saying that one of the things you use is psychedelics or cannabis to help you get relaxed to get there.
Yeah, and it just beyond relaxed. I mean, it does do that, but it lets you be so introspective that you really take a second look at everything you've ever done. And I almost feel like when you smoke it or you take edibles or topicals or whatever, I think it's like a gateway for you to enter into spirituality, into the spirit realm, and whatever positive energy that you believe in. For me, it's God. So I feel like that's an open gateway for God to speak to me and kind of like a little nudge and be like, hey, check out that person over there. You were being a dick. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to go apologize for that, or this is the direction you need to take your life in. But if you're not open to that, if all you think is, oh, that's just a drug, you're just a stoner. I'm not really a stoner. I'll do it once in a while. I used to do it a lot, and I don't feel like I need it all that much anymore because I'm in this mindset and state of mind where it's taught me to kind of center myself right here to where I don't need it all that much anymore.
Just had a big conversation with someone about it being addictive, and it was someone who had never tried it, knew nothing about it. And it's like, I can tell you addictive being an ex-drug addict, and pot's not addictive. Crack, on the other hand, yes.
Yeah, so I was looking at the scale a few months ago of where it was on the addiction scale, and it's if you think that it's addicting to the point of like where it's a class 1 drug, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, coffee is more addictive than marijuana. I'm not going to say it has zero addictive aspects of it. But I also think that people that are addicted to it, I think that's in their character. And I think they're just addicted to the euphoria that they feel. And that person can be addicted to anything. They can be addicted to pornography and masturbation, to sex, to heroin, whatever it is. To food. It's just cannabis is just the thing that landed on their lap. So cannabis gets a bad rap because of bad people.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about music, because music has always been what shifts me to a good mood if I'm in a funky funk place. When my mom passed, first thing, music. So let's talk a little bit about music and how you feel it frees your soul. And I know you're really passionate about it, because it's already your intention in the future. We're going to hear a lot more Marcos and music.
It's a universal language. Just like mathematics is a universal language for your mind, I think that music is a universal language for your soul. I mean, you don't even have to understand the lyrics. For example, opera. You just hear some really beautiful opera with someone who's really, really talented. I don't know that language. I don't even know what language they're singing in. I didn't know for a long time. I was just like, is that even a language, or are they kind of just, doing runs? So it's like it hits you without you even having to understand what they're saying. It's important, when you do understand what they're saying, because they could be talking about some sweetheart that left you, and then at that moment you just kind of like, you know what, it is going to be all right. So
it too, right? Though I once heard that the music you listen to when you're 15 and 16 is like your standard music as you get older. I know if I can hear a song, I can sing every word of it and go right back to the concert I was at, or who I was hanging with and what we were doing. So is that a good thing, that music can trigger memories like that? What's your comment
Oh my
there.
God, absolutely. Like I think a lot of people like to um kind of travel back in time because when you're a child, it almost seemed like everything was safe. You weren't responsible for yourself. So someone else was responsible for you, and you could always have this blanket of comfort from your parents, from somebody. If you didn't have that, that sucks. But music could be that for you. And for me, the Eagles is what does that for me. It takes me back into a time where my dad was still around, you know, and where I definitely felt that place of comfort. He was around, man. I had that blanket, and it just takes me to that place. So the Eagles is like, man, that's just something that I can listen to, drink a beer, drink a little bit of whiskey, and just be like, wow, just kind of reminisce on that time.
There's a great way to shift your mind then, right? Find a time when you really enjoyed the music and play that song.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, for me, when I was in the military, man, the military is very stressful. So if you got people that in the military, give them a shout out, because like in my mind, I was so chaotic that I would pick like the hardest thrash black metal to fall asleep to. If you tried to do that now, you'd be like, oh my God, get this away from me. But I was like, at the time, I was like, the harder, the faster, the more growls, everything. I was just like, oh, that just brings me comfort. Yeah. Everything outside of me is so chaotic. This doesn't seem as chaotic.
That is really wild. So let's think about that. The chaos in your world was going like this. So you actually found peace and calm in chaos of music.
Yeah, it's really strange how that works out, man.
You never know. You go with the flow. You always can feel in your body when you feel good, though, right? Let's talk a little bit about your Freethinkers Allowed podcast. Let them know about, do you have a certain time you're podcasting? Where can they find you? Are you on iTunes?
Right now, I'm on iTunes. I'm on Google Play. I'm on Spotify and any other of the, I think it's like 8 or 9 platforms that we're on now. We also have a Facebook page, and pretty soon we're going to start a YouTube page so that you guys can actually see the interviews happening. But it seems like most people just listen to the podcast. So I think we're going to stick with that for a little bit. And then later on, we can invest some time into the quality for YouTube.
What words of advice would you give the listeners as we end this call today on how they can move forward in life and be a free thinker?
I think that you're not going to help anybody else by not being yourself. You have to be yourself. If you have no idea who you are, look at the things that you like. What do you like to do? And if even if you don't like anything, go try things. Go on Groupon and go look at the deals they have. Go hang out with people. Go do some fake mountain climbing. Go do some dinners that are not expensive. And you go to hang out with people. Then you can find out what you like. Hey, I really like being outdoors. I really like hanging out with people in the city. I really like talking about this or that or whatever. I really love music. So you can find yourself in that way, and you can begin to shift your life into the direction where it's positive and where you can be a positive influence to others as well.
Surround yourself with positive people, because everybody, even the positive people, I know Tony Robbins has had a bad day once. He's not perfect. He's human. So what you do is you surround yourself with like-minded people and those that are going to support you. Like I will always support you, Mr. Marcos, always.
Awesome.
Guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to a World of Energy podcast. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy, busy day, Marcos. I look forward to listening to more of your podcast. And we're going to here to save the planet one podcast at a time. See you on the next one.
Peace out, everybody.
Peace out.